Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. David, it's 2026.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Tons of basketball to talk about. We've got the other half of the two Christmas tournaments, and then we've got some games coming up, a few. And then, we're going to get into full swing of regular season.
Yeah, regular season is here now. Kind of a break from tournaments for a few weeks, and we'll just get some conference games and things of that nature. But we've kind of had the feeling out of a lot of these teams, seeing how good they really are, how good they can be, and we're getting a good look at them.
It's definitely it's a good time to get both the best and worst of teams. Sometimes teams will play out of their minds. Sometimes they'll break expectations. Sometimes they just fall short because it's very early in the season, things like that.
Yeah, some teams have surprised us, and some teams have kind of been a little bit lacking, I think, from what we thought they might be. But still a lot. 2 months left, so you got a lot of time to kind of get some things fixed. And I think a lot of these teams are just kind of just working toward that district tournament now. I think you kind of know what you need to work on and what and improve on, and that's just kind of your focus now here moving forward. Kind
of blows my mind that we're already more than a month into this basketball season. I mean, December blows by so fast. There's so much going on, but at the same time, it's like that's already 4 weeks that we've gone through.
Yeah, December just flies by, and there's a lot of games in December too. You look at a lot of these teams have played 10, 12 games, coming into January, and it's just like it was just in a month. I mean, there's just a lot of games in a short amount of time. So now it's time for the coaches. They kind of have a little more practice time. Things are a little more usually 2 games a week. Things kind of settle in a little bit more. So I think now that now's when we see some teams start really getting better, I think.
Right. Do you want to go ahead and talk about some scores from the Christmas tournaments?
Let's do it.
Let's start with the Southeast Missourian. On Monday, we had Delta and Charleston 62-59.
Yeah, Delta kind of surprised some people winning this game, but Delta's a good team. Delta's a nice Class 1 team. They've got a lot of seniors. They guard you well. They get up and down the floor, and we've documented Charleston is just an up and down team. And I just think right now they're just not that good. I'm like, I hate saying that, but they're a team that I think can be good by the end of the year, but they're just not there yet. They've got to find some consistency at some point, and Delta took advantage of that and was able to win this game, and a big win for Delta, I thought. It's not every day a Delta's going to beat a Charleston, and it was a kind of an eye-opening win for I think a lot of people around the area, but Delta's a good team.
I guess that's going to be the narrative going forward that, Charleston's going to have to deal with, and a lot of people are going to have to deal with this isn't the Charleston teams of old. How do you reinvent yourself to maybe get back to that status? But also, does everybody need to start saying, okay, maybe this wasn't so much of an upset anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I still consider it an upset. Obviously, seed-wise it was, but at the same time, you're right. I mean, Charleston is not what Charleston was, and I know a lot of people have said, well, they're going to be tough, in districts and everything else. But I think we're a long way before we even discuss them in that district conversation. I mean, they are just not a consistent basketball team at this point. They struggle at times offensively and defensively, and they're just not what you expect a Charleston team to be. And so I think we're a long ways from where Charleston, expects themselves to be. At the same time, again, like I said, Delta's a good team. Delta has been down for a while, but this is a good team. This is a very senior, experienced team, and they do a nice job. And they're probably right now the favorites in Class 1 and around this area. And but they're a really nice team, and I'm anxious to see what they do going forward.
And then next up, another upset, Chaffee versus Cape Central, 46-32.
This was not an upset. Cape Central is just not very good, and I've been saying it ever since Tashandra Edwards got hurt. This is just not a good basketball team, and they're struggling to find any kind of offense. And now, once they do, they could be a different team. But I mean, they defend pretty well, but they just cannot find scoring. And in this game, they only scored 32 points. At the same time, Chaffee's a good team. I mean, Chaffee kind of opened a lot of eyes, I think, in this tournament. They've got some guys that can score. They can get up and down the floor. They can defend if it falls into a half-court game. They've got a lot of weapons, and there are a lot of juniors on this team. So I think this is a team that's not just good for this year, but I think this is a look for next year. That this is a team that is going to have to be dealt with. But Chaffee's a good team, and I really felt like whenever I saw this matchup, I thought Chaffee could win this game.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me too is for Cape Central. I mean, is it just a lack of fundamentals at this point? Because you have playmakers with athleticism that can, if you can dunk the ball in high school already, and you've got multiple guys that can do that, why are you losing to teams like this?
Yeah, for me, it's just they just don't have any. They've got guys who are good defensively. They've got guys who I mean, fundamentally, I think are okay. But I just think that they've not figured out. You've got to get the ball to the rim some. They just don't have those guys that can just score when they need to. They just don't have any scores. I mean, that's just it. I mean, they just have no offensive-minded guys, and I think you've got to find somebody. Johnson's not a bad player. I mean, he can kind of score, but you really just don't have anybody else that can really step up and knock down a shot. There's not much outside shooting there. There's not. I mean, they depended so much on Edwards for their offense, and they've just not figured out how to get that offense. Now I think that we're out of these tournaments. You have a little more practice time. I think now they might be able to figure something out here in the coming weeks. But right now they just don't have it. And you can they're good defensively. Again, they only gave up 46 points, but you got to score more than 32, and they just struggle to score, and that's just going to be a big problem theirs moving forward.
And then moving on, we've got Notre Dame versus Jackson, 1954.
Yeah, this game was ugly, just ugly. Jackson just did a tremendous job. Physical, defensively, pushed Notre Dame out, and Notre Dame seemed to be just working around the perimeter, was not able to get the ball inside, was not able to do anything offensively. I just thought they were manhandled by Jackson. Jackson just bigger and stronger than they were, and Notre Dame just could get nothing going at all offensively. Jackson, boy, they were just guarding so well, and then of course offensively they just pretty much did what they wanted. I mean, it was just just complete domination from Jackson.
And I got these games out of order, so we're going to backtrack just a little bit. But Orion versus Leopold, 45-74.
Yeah, Leopold, played well in this game. I mean, they were obviously the favorite, and they had the freshman Dwyer. He had 22, B-Sink 50. I mean, they hit 11 threes. They were just hitting from everywhere. Leopold's a good team as well. They're just not quite to the caliber, I think, of a Delta.
And then Woodland versus Scott City, 82-68.
Yeah, Woodland played really well in this game. This was a fun game, but Woodland just kind of a statement win. They forced 17 turnovers, forced Scott City into a lot of turnovers, got the game in an up and down game, which I think it was definitely beneficial to them. And they shot it well. They hit 7 threes. I mean, Woodland is a good team when they're firing on all cylinders, and they definitely were in this game. And Scott City hung with Woodland for a while, but it was just Woodland just had too much, and I think they made a little run there at the end of the first half, and that kind of was a big difference in the game.
And we'll talk more about Woodland a little bit later, but when it started pretty slow in this tournament, I would say, but as the week went by, I mean, really started ramping.
Yeah, and they play so hard. They've got a lot of guys there. They don't have a deep bench, and I think that's kind of we'll talk a little bit more about that. But they don't have a super deep bench. But man, they go so hard, and I don't think anybody plays harder than Corbin Kinder. That he is just a fun player to watch. If you've not had a chance to watch him do that, he was a lot of fun in this tournament. And but that's just it's a fun team. They play hard. They shoot it well. They can get to the rim when they need to. They're going to force a lot of turnovers. It's a fun team to watch.
And then let's switch over to Bloomfield Christmas Tournament. We've got Risco versus Bernie, 48-51.
Yeah, this was a kind of a big change from what we saw, a couple of weeks earlier when Bernie just completely dominated Risco in the Bernie tournament. But Bernie again struggled early in this game shooting the ball. They kind of relied on the 3-point shot too much. Finally, kind of figured some things out in the second half there, and was able to pull this one out. But it was a tough game. Risco gave them all they wanted. Had made some adjustments from the first time they'd played, and this was a really nice game. A good. I mean, both these teams are good teams. Bernie was just able to pull this one out.
I do wonder if this was a case of Risco improving since that Bernie tournament, or has Bernie regressed a little bit. I feel like they're a roller coaster team in some ways too.
Yeah, I don't feel like they've necessarily regressed, but if they're not hitting their outside shots, they're just not as good of a team. And playing at Bloomfield is not like playing in Bernie, and that's something that we've seen over the years. Is Bernie plays very well at Bernie, but we were talking before we went on that Bernie it seems like they always have a game or two in this Bloomfield Christmas tournament where they just don't play very well, and this is kind of one of those games. They just didn't shoot it well, but again, they figured out a way to win, and that's a tribute to them. At the same time, Risco. They did better for Rogers 22, Fortner 11, but at the same time, they needed some other help and they just weren't able to get it. Bernie, the second half, they kind of went in more to Aycock. I think he had 11 of his 15 in the second half, and that's something I think Bernie needs to do is get the ball to the big guy inside and not rely so much on the 3-point shot.
Yeah, I can see it. Moving on, we have Van Buren versus Dexter, 57-56.
Yeah, this was the upset of the tournament, which I said in our last podcast that I thought
both
Van
said
Buren.
We like Burning.
Yeah,
Van Buren.
Yeah, I thought Van Buren could win this game, and it just came down. It was a good game. I don't think both teams missed a lot of easy shots. It was a very physical game. Van Buren just. A lot of seniors on that team. I just felt like it was Van Buren's time, and it proved out to be right. But a lot of fans were behind Van Buren in this game. This was obviously Dexter in the Christmas tournament. You're not going to, unless you're from Dexter, there's not going to be a lot of cheering for them.
Not at all.
And so Van Buren had the crowd. It was a nice crowd for that game, and just things go their way. And Sepulvedo from Dexter, I thought played very, very well, but Van Buren just had too much and made the plays at the end when they needed to.
And from the sports journalism side, if you want a narrative game that kind of had everything behind it, is just like either way this game went, it would have been a good story, because either it's how it happened. Van Buren, kind of showed up, underseeded compared to Dexter, things like that, and win first time going to a championship. Awesome, great like that. If Dexter won, it's the bad guy kicked the little guy while he's down. It's just like, okay, well then that also would have been a fun storyline.
The fun little narrative there. But
that's how my brain works, though.
Again, Dexter struggles to win the close games, and that's kind of the narrative of the season so far, that they're just struggling to win these close games. But Van Buren again made the plays, hit the free throws down the stretch they needed to make, and proved to be the better team in this game. It was just a really nice game, and it's a shame that somebody has to lose one of those, but because it was a really fun game.
And then moving on, we've got East Prairie Doniphan 46-50.
Yeah, Doniphan much better than what their seed was in this tournament.
You want to talk about underseeded. Doniphan was not a 14 seed.
Yeah, their early season, it took them a while to get going in this season, and that kind of cost them as far as the seed goes. But, they kind of took the game over in the second half. Haygood had a really nice second half for them, and just a little too much. And Doniphan's not a bad basketball team, and they kind of showed that they were most definitely underseeded in this tournament.
Kennett Bloomfield 44-36.
Yeah, just not a fun game if you like offense. Both of these teams just kind of struggled to score at times, and Kennett just had just a little bit too much in this one. But a good showing from Bloomfield. Again, they finished better than what their seed was, and look. Coach Sindel does a really nice job. Both of these coaches do a nice job with these teams. They just don't have the horses that some of these other teams have.
And then East Carter versus Malden, 58-68.
Yeah, this was a fun game. I mean, Malden kind of came out and I think kind of surprised. They took control early. And, but man, East Carter's, they're not going to quit. They're really kind of a scrappy bunch. They really got after them and kind of closed late. But Malden, again, made the plays late to hang on to this game. But I think, Malden just came out on fire in this game. And just kind of Fowler had 19, Dobbins 21. It's just those guys can those guys can score whenever they're clicking, and they were clicking early in this game.
And then final game for the night, Puxico versus Twin Rivers. Yeah, you think you get a second chance, and then it turns out to be 82-49.
Yeah, I mean, Twin Rivers just doesn't have the guards to match up with Puxico, and that's just not it's just the way it is. And Burchard and Hancock just went off as they will do against most teams. And this Puxico team, they are very guard centric, and they were able to that they match up very well with Twin Rivers, and just kind of took it to them.
Moving on to Tuesday night, championship night. Delta versus Chaffee, 69-84.
Yeah, this one was a really nice game. I mean, yeah, Chaffee. I'm going to tell you what, Dane McMullen. Welcome to the game. He had 37 points at 24 or something in the first half. He was unconscious, and just that kid, whenever he gets hot, he can shoot it. And missed a couple of layups along the way, which was he could have had 40 plus. But he was unconscious early in this game from outside, and Delta just lost him a few times, and but Delta kind of closed a few times, but just never could get close enough. Fowler had another good game for them. He was an all-tournament player for Nolan Fowler. Played well for Chaffee this whole tournament. Best tournament finish ever for Chaffee. 5th place finish, best they've ever done in this tournament, and they've been in it for a long, long time. And so that's a tribute to these guys, and they're going to be back next year. I mean, this team kind of looks to me a little bit like Woodland did last year. You kind of make your bones this year, and next year you can maybe make a little bit of a run. And so we'll see what happens next year. But a really good tournament for Chaffee.
Moving on, we've got Leopold Bell City, 42-47.
Yeah, this was another game that, if you like offense, probably not the most fun game, but a good bounce back game for tournament really for Bell City after losing the opening game to Chaffee. They played pretty well, and they're a very good defensive team, and they did a nice job. Class 1's going to be tough there because they can guard with anybody, and that was just a nice game. I think it's the second time that they beat Leopold already this season.
Notre Dame, Scott City, 60-54.
Another good bounce back game for Notre Dame because, after only scoring 19 points, they came back.
That'd probably leave you pretty low.
Yeah, and they fixed a few things. They were able to, instead of just passing around the perimeter, they were able to get to the rim a little bit. A nice little inside-out game. They would get the ball to the high post and kick it out for some open threes. They hit some threes, and they played nice. Scott City was missing their three-point shooter, who got injured in the semifinal. So that was unfortunate for them. So they were kind of mostly inside focused. They didn't really have a guy that could really stretch it too much. So that kind of played into Notre Dame's defensive hands. But it was a really nice game.
And then for the final game for the championship round, we had Woodland Jackson 57-68.
Yeah, this was a fun game. Jackson just had too much at the end, but Woodland played hard. They kind of fell behind early, but they made a big comeback, got the ball game tied there in the third quarter, and going into the fourth quarter, it was anybody's game, and I think Woodland just kind of ran out of gas, and we go back to you just don't have the bench, and when you play 4 games in 5 days, that kind of
get tired.
You can get tired, and I felt like they just got they played so hard to get to where they were. And I just felt like they kind of ran out of a little bit of gas. And Jackson, man, Ty Forrest had a career game. I think he had 30 points. Jackson just looked good. They're really starting to improve, and they're playing really well right now. This was 2 very good teams matching up, and I was just real impressed with both teams. But just a really nice championship game.
And takeaways from this, I mean, how many championships has Jackson won in this tournament?
I believe that's their 7th. Their 7th. They're back to back now, but I think it's their 7th tournament they've won, and 24 finals, if I'm not mistaken. Over the course of it, and
5 final appearances in a row.
Yeah, 5 in a row, and most of their final appearances are coming. Most of those 24 came since in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, they weren't a good team early, so I'm like, this is a team that's been very prominent here in the last 30 years in this tournament, and probably one of the better teams that you're going to find here. And this Jackson team was fun, and they do a lot of good things. And they guard well. They can shoot it. They've got an inside-outside game. They can handle the ball. They don't turn it over a ton. They're a fun team, and they're a good team.
I think that's why we were so maybe not high on them, but we thought during SEMO conference is okay, well, Jackson looks like they could probably have a little upheaval behind them, which I think some of it's, coming back from football, things like that. But, looking at them right now, it seems like they could be in that place going forward.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be, one of the best teams in Southeast Missouri. They're a team that I think can give Sikeston a game whenever they play later on in the year. I think that's, really late in the year, late in February, I believe. And if they continue to improve, that's a team that can cause Sikeston some major problems because of the size that they have inside, and they handle the ball well. They're not going to turn it over a ton. So that's a fun team to watch, and they just continue to get better, and they look much better in this tournament than they did in the SEMO Conference tournament. And
then for Woodland, they look like sometimes the scrappiest of underdogs in some ways.
Yeah, they play so hard. They're so fun to watch. They get up and down the floor, and we said this about them last year as well. They're just a fun brand of basketball to watch, and there's some really good players there, and they've got some younger guys that are going to be okay. But right now, you're looking at those seniors, and those seniors, Calvin Layton, and you're looking at obviously Corbin Kinder. I'm really impressed with McCormick inside. He's not a big kid, but he does a lot of good things for them. They have a lot of good players on this team, and this is a team that I think as you were looking, I'm not so sure they're not the best small school team in Southeast Missouri. There's obviously arguments to be made by Puxico and some others, but there's some good battles going to be had in that Stoddard County tournament. That's for sure.
That's the hope. For Woodland, your biggest obstacle is one it's Principia at this point.
Yeah, and long time between now and Principia, and that's just a completely different beast that you're going to have to face there. But yeah, I think you just kind of got to focus right now. They've never won the Stoddard County tournament. I think that's kind of their next focus. Maybe we can get in there and win that. They're probably going to be I would assume they'll be the 2 seed for that tournament, and have a chance to play probably a Puxico in the championship game. And we saw what happened in that game last year. Puxico just completely blew them out, and I'm sure they want to kind of erase that. So, I'm assuming that's probably the next thing on their mind is that Stoddard County tournament.
Most likely. All right, let's talk about Bloomfield Christmas Tournament again. Kenneth Donovan, 59.
Yeah, and again, Donovan, the 14th seed in the tournament, won the consolation bracket, so good for them going 3-1 in this tournament. I think they have, like I said, really improved. They're definitely better than a 14. Lansing Todd, 29 points, 5 threes. They've got different guys. Corey Haygood, Lansing Todd. They got different guys that are stepping up. They just don't have a ton of size. There's not much, inside, but they've got a lot of smaller guys that play well, and I think they're going to get better as this year goes on. It's not a team that you're going to be able to overlook, but it was a good tournament from them.
Fun to watch too.
Yeah, they are.
It kind of feels like every time they get matched up with teams that have more size over them, they tend to kind of bully them, which is how they'll poke and prod every chance they get.
Yeah, they are a very scrappy team, and they know there's not a lot of size. Those smaller guys got to get in there and rebound. They do a nice job of blocking out, and this is not a bad basketball team. And like I said, they've improved. I think it took a while for them to find some footing, but once they did, this is not a bad basketball team. They're going to win a lot of games this year.
Up next, we've got Bernie and Malden, 71-45.
Yeah, big bounce back here from Bernie. They shot it well, kind of came out on fire, and hit some outside shots. Kane Hopgood, 22, and whenever they're hitting the outside shots, they're tough to beat. And that's kind of been the we talked about earlier. They need to kind of maybe throw the ball inside more, but man, when they're hitting outside, that opens up that inside for Acock, and they're a tough team to beat, and they proved that in this game.
And for Malden, what do you do going forward?
Well, I think if you're Malden, this is a great improvement from last year. Last year you really struggled to even find a win on your schedule, and so now this is a team that has really improved. And you went 2-2 in this tournament. You finished 6th. I think you're not hanging your head too much. I think this is a Malden team that's is still a work in progress, and they've got some guys that can score. They got some guys that can really get up and rebound. They're fun to watch. I think this is a team that's just improving, and you just got to work through it. Your first year with Coach Fowler, and I think they're just trying to get everything figured out here, and I think they're doing a nice job of that. And it was a good tournament from them.
Absolutely. Up next, we've got Twin Rivers Dexter, 36-63.
Yeah, Dexter, this is the way I think a lot of people thought Dexter would play, and they just kind of came out early and just took this game over. They were aggressive. They defended well. This is the way you expect this Dexter team to play, and they need to build off this game. They need to build off this, and they got ahead early and put their foot on their neck and just kept going, and they didn't make this a close game. And this is what they need to do moving forward. Just kind of build off of this, and just because this is a way that I think a lot of people think Dexter can play.
Yeah, this is I would say you're right. This is kind of the template you want to build off of. And you look at all of Dexter's losses, and I know we talked about that outside the podcast too. It's just like, are we really going to judge a team off of losses? But they do come to teams that like they've went far in a lot of places. I mean, you look at Woodland, you look at Jackson, you look at Sykeston. Those losses were just like, okay, yeah, those are comparable teams. Now, when you come against teams that are smaller classes, things like that, you're expected to dominate in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to win these games, and you need to, and again, you need to, put your, get ahead early and just put them out. And, I think that's what they did in this game. And again, this is what they need to build off of, because they've got some games coming up here. They've got Cape Central this week. They should beat Cape Central, but you can't mess around with them like you did in the SEMO Conference Tournament. You had a big lead on them and let them come back, and then had to pull it out in the end. You can't do that with this Cape Central team. You've got to, again, this Cape Central team struggles to score. You've got to just put your foot on their throat and take care of business. And I think that's what just build off this and just continue to get better. And I'm sure that's what Coach Allen's working with this team to do.
I'd imagine. You look at just kind of this tournament season is kind of like, okay, what do we got? How do we formulate a team out of it? And obviously, they got the pieces. It feels like they're really starting to put it together, though.
Yeah, this game, if this game's any indication, yes, and but again, you got to figure out how to win close games, because you're going to have some close games along the way. There's some tough teams on Dexter's schedule. I mean, you've got Puxco left, and you've got the Stoddard County tournament. You're going to have some close games moving ahead. You've got the SEMO Conference teams coming up. I mean, there's going to be some tight games. You've got to figure out how to win those tight games and do the little things, make your free throws, not turn the ball over. You've got to do those things to win these close games, and they just got to figure those out.
And then for kind of a history-making game, Van Buren versus Puxco, 46-56.
Yeah, Puxco just, it took a while to get going. I mean, it was the first half that Van Buren kind of gave them, everything they wanted. And that third quarter, Puxco just kind of pulled away. The guard play was just a little too much. I thought Van Buren maybe depended a little bit more on the three-point shot than maybe they should have.
This was a game that was won in the late game.
Yeah, I thought that I was hoping to see Van Buren kind of push the tempo a little bit at times, but they just it was just Puxco's guard play I thought was the difference. Burchard and Hancock, they're just tough to stop, and I thought Puxco was exposed against Sykes a little bit, but these teams just aren't the same. And these are teams that Puxco can beat, and these are teams that Puxco can, that match up very well. Puxco matches up very well with them, and I thought Puxco played very well. And again, their guards are just tough to match up against.
I think it's interesting too, because when you look at their play style, especially in the start of this game and towards the end of this game, I feel like they could kind of feel like, okay, 3-point shooting, it's not here right now. Let's switch off. Let's be a little more aggressive. Let's go to the paint a little bit more. And then towards in the third and fourth, that's when it's like, okay, we'll try the three again.
Yeah.
And that's when they really started, building that lead up. And I just don't think Van Buren could have really come back from that.
I really like Burchard. Burchard does a good job. If
you like Landon Burchard?
Yeah, I like him. I've heard he's a good player.
111 points scored in this tournament.
Yeah, he's a really nice player, and can get to the rim, and if and hit the outside shot. But when he gets to the rim, you've got to kind of collapse down, and that opens up that outside shot for everybody else. And it's just a tough matchup for a lot of teams, and that's what happened in this game. He's able to get inside, and once you get inside, that opens up that outside shot, and that's just kind of what happens. And when you're making those outside shots, you're just tough to beat.
Great tournament for Puxco. Rolled in this tournament, kind of thought they would, but made history too. The school's never gone back to back, and when's the last time a school other than Dexter?
Yeah, there's been quite a few. Dexter's went back to back, Mullins went back to back. There's a lot of teams that have went back to back, but it's been a while since other than a team other than Dexter or Kennett went back to back, and so good for Puxco. I mean, because this is kind of their last run with this group, and this was a good tournament for them. A lot of people were complaining that they got the 2 seed, but they did what they needed to do to win this tournament, and so good for them. They played well. I thought they played very well.
I think it's better they got the 2 seed. They get to play a tougher bracket.
Yeah, and honestly, it worked out for them because the upset of Bernie, so they didn't have to play the 3 seed, and then Dexter, the 1 seed, was upset, and so they didn't have to play the 1 seed. But I don't think it changes anything. I still think Puxico was the best team in this tournament, and I think they would have won no matter who they had to play. And they look good in this tournament, and so good for them.
All right. Do you want to move on to Dave's Dozen of the Week?
Yeah, we can have fun with this one. So Delta's my first team out, and I hate having to push them out, but there's some, they lost to Chaffee in that 5th place game up in Cape. And so I put Chaffee at my number 12. First time they made an appearance here in the top 12. I've got Bernie down at 11. After their loss, they did kind of rebound and played well. I've got Hayti at number 10. Hayti, for a lot of people who don't know, they went down to Manila, Arkansas, beat Gosnell in the championship down there of that tournament. They're playing pretty well right now. Gosnell's a pretty good team. They beat them and look pretty good doing it. So
we kind of haven't really talked about Hayti since that Sison game, but it's a team that is improving, and they should be on your radar.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a bad loss, in my opinion, to St. Genevieve, a little before Christmas, and that kind of kept them out of my top 12. But they went down to Arkansas. They look pretty good down there. They're gonna be playing some South Pims and Maldens and stuff coming up soon. So we're gonna get a better look at them as we move along here to see how much they've improved and how they match up locally. But they just haven't played a lot of local teams. But winning that tournament down there was pretty impressive, and just a good showing for them for 3 games. At number 9, I've got Scott City. And then at number 8, I have Notre Dame. And the only reason they're not ahead at number 7 is because of that 54-19 game to Jackson. That's a tough one. That was tough. And so I've got Dexter at 7, just because, obviously whenever they played Jackson, they only lost by 2, and, Notre Dame was not competitive against Jackson. So at number 6, now, I've not included this team in any of them before, but I threw in Van Buren because, with them playing in the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament, why not include them?
Sure.
So I'm going to go ahead and include them, but we're going to put them at number 6, and they could be in this top 12 for a while, because I was very impressed with the way they play. They're a very senior dominated team. This is a team that could be there in Class 2 as we move along.
Absolutely.
Number 5, I've got South Pemiscot. They're still undefeated. There's no reason to move them too much. They're going to have some tough games coming up. Number 4, Woodland, and again, I'm not so sure they're not the best team, the small school team, but that will be determined later on in the year as they play Puxico, and because I got Puxico at number 3. They won the championship, so they get to be at number 3. Number 2 is Jackson, and I've got number 1 Sykes. And even though they lost a couple of games this last week up in that tournament up in St. Louis, the teams they lost to are much better than any teams in Southeast Missouri that are around here. So I've got Sykes and still at number 1, although they have been exposed a little bit, and I think they need to definitely need to improve on their post game a little bit. That's something that's going to be a work in progress for the Bulldogs.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit too, because those games, and correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't lose terribly in those games.
No, they didn't. They lost by 2 to Holt. And Holt, a good team. I think that was kind of a surprise to everybody, but it was 77-75. But Holt's got some big kids inside that caused them some problems. And then they turn around and lose to Francis House Central in the 3rd place game, 78-70. But that game was close down to the end. Francis House hit some free throws. I think they were 16 of 18, from the free throw line in that game, and just did not miss. And of course, Sykeson's trying to foul them to get to extend the game, and they just kept making free throws. So that score looked a little bit worse than what it was. Both games were very good games, fun to watch, up and down games. And again, Sykeson's just doesn't have a lot of size inside, and these teams that have the 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" guys can really kind of expose that, and they were able to do that. Dexter kind of did that earlier in the year, even with some smaller guys, just by rebounding and things of that nature. So these are some things that Sykeson's got to work on, and I'm sure they will. But I still think Sykeson's the best team in Southeast Missouri right now. There's no reason to take that number 1 spot away from them, but there are some things that they need to work on for sure.
Absolutely. I think we go back and forth on whether you can consider a loss a good loss or not. But I do think in tournaments, especially, I feel like they do help you. I don't want to say expose your weaknesses, but at the same time, it does show you what you need to work on.
Right, and it's kind of good. I mean, let's be honest. Southeast Missouri basketball, for the most part, from top to bottom, is down from what it has been in the last few years. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously, Sykeston is not what they were last year, but they're still a very good basketball team. And so going up there and playing some tougher teams up there you're going to find out a little bit more about you than what you do against some of these teams down here that are kind of, down with you. So, in this case, they're losses and there's never, I guess, a good loss if you're a coach or whatever, but you did find out a lot about yourself here in this situation, and they were good games. You weren't blown out in any games, and you're playing two very good teams.
Absolutely. All right. You want to talk about some games coming up this week?
Let's do it.
All right. On Tuesday, I've got Neelyville versus Hayti.
Yeah, this is again, we're going to find out a little bit more about Hayti. This is a matchup of the district championship game from last year. You would think that Hayti playing at home would have the definite advantage in this game, but we'll see. Kind of if I'm right with my Hayti, ranking them in at number 10. But this is Haty's got to play some local teams, and I think the Haty's playing well. They're athletic. They've got a lot of shooters. They've got a big kid inside. I mean, they've got a lot of pieces here that could make them very formidable in Class 2.
I think Neelyville's a good matchup for that too. They're not like the one seed of any tournaments, but at the same time, they're not like.
They're scrappy.
They're scrappy.
Very scrappy.
They're scrappy. They'll give you a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're not going to back down, and they're going to get after you. And so it's just interesting to see again. You would think that Hayti goes in and takes care of this game, but we'll see.
And then next up, I've got Risco versus South Pemiscot.
This ought to be a fun game. We saw this a couple of weeks ago, and it went down to the wire, and Risco just missed a shot at the end. And so we'll see if South Pem, South Pem hasn't played in a while. That was the last game that they played. So it's going to be actually they play on Monday, so they'll have a back-to-back. They've got to go down to Jonesboro to play Westside on Monday. But at the same time, they've not played in a while. I mean, they've been off for a couple of weeks. So we'll see if there's any rust on them. But this ought to be a fun game.
Seems like it. Up next, I've got Richland versus Woodland.
Yeah, Stoddard County Conference is kind of getting into full force. You would assume that Woodland's going to kind of build off what they did in the Christmas tournament up there in Cape, and Richland at the same time they're trying to find somebody besides Tilly to help them out. They've got to figure some things out there at Richland.
And then next up, I've got Bunker versus South Iron. Just listed this one because
this is kind of a little bit out of our area, but it's a really good basketball game. Two very good basketball teams. And Bunker, I believe, is undefeated. I think they're 13-0. Mm-hmm. They're a good basketball team. And of course, everybody knows what South Iron is. South Iron's always seems to be there when it comes to district time. They play a tough schedule. And so we'll see what this Bunker team has. It ought to be a fun game.
That one should be fun.
Yeah.
And then I've got Doniphan versus Puxico.
Yeah, and again, Puxico, this is very similar to the Hayti game because, Puxico's definitely the favorite in this game. But at the same time, Doniphan's a scrappy team. They're gonna get after them and give them a game. I expect Doniphan or Puxico to win this game. Going away, the guards are just too much. I know the big kid for I've heard the big kid for Puxico is going to be out for a few weeks with an injury. So it'll be interesting to see how that how they move some pieces around there. So we'll see. But I expect Puxico to just kind of again build like Woodland, build off what they did in the Christmas tournament and just continue to improve.
All right. If I'm missing any games, go ahead and interject whenever you want to. But Friday games, I've got South Pemiscot versus Malden.
Yeah. Thursday game, we don't want to leave out the Bell City Risco game. I believe A Corp's going to be doing that game. That's going to be a lot of fun. Bell City's going to really get after you defensively. Risco's got some offensive weapons, so kind of two different styles at play there. That'll be a lot of fun. And what was the game? I'm sorry, you said on Friday. I'm sorry.
On Friday, I've got South Pemiscot versus Malden.
Yeah, another one for South Pem. South Pem's got just jumping right into it here with this the tough schedule. They've got like I said, Jonesboro West Side, and then Risco, now Malden. Malden's going to be a tough game for them. Malden will, they're going to get up and down the floor. They've got some guys that can rebound. They're very athletic. I think they match up very well. South Pem, not a lot of size, but like to get up and down the floor, and they're going to force a lot of turnovers. You're going to have to take care of the basketball if you're Malden.
And then next up, I've got Chaffee and Bell City.
Another good basketball game here that I think
teams that just keep meeting up.
Yeah, I start to say it's going to be another matchup rematch, and obviously this is going to be probably a lower scoring game. Bell City is going to slow it down and get after you defensively. Chaffee's going to have to find some scoring, and they were able to pull it out the first time they played, and or actually it'll be the third time they played, won't it? So because Bell City beat them in the Orient tournament, so this will be the kind of the deciding game between between the two, and it ought to be a fun game.
And then next up, I've got Delta versus Scott City.
I tell you what, this game is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be an up and down game. Delta gets after you defensively, likes a full court game, and I think Scott City can play that way as well. Scott City's got a little more size, so I think that can play into it. But this is going to be a lot of fun. It's a Scott Miss game, so this will have a big deciding factor on some seedings for that tournament. But I think two very good basketball teams are really going to go after it here.
I tell you what, first team out on your list, but I think Delta. I'd look at every Delta game now. It's just like, all right, let's see what they can do.
Yeah, and I hate putting them out on the list. It's just who do you replace them with?
Right.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things where they deserve to be on there, but adding Van Buren, that kind of knocked Delta out. But they are a deserving team to be ranked because they're a fun team to watch and they're a good basketball team.
And then moving on, this will be on the Bulldog Nation Network. We've got Charleston versus Sykeston.
Yeah, Sykeston's the definitive favorite in this one, playing at the field house. That place will be packed. It'll be a lot of, that game. Even when they're not the best teams, that thing is a big game between those two towns, and a lot of red, a lot of blue in that one, and it'll be an interesting game. Usually there's somebody steps up in one of these games that you are not. That are not known for stepping up, and so we'll see if that happens in this game. But I expect Sykeston to win this one going away. I don't think right now Charleston's just not playing well enough, I think, to make this too much of a game. But again, somebody steps up. Yeah. This is two rivals going at it. You never know.
Rivalry games always seem to bring out something.
Yeah, and it wouldn't shock me to see a Charleston, all of a sudden step up and play their best game of the year here. So we'll see, and but that the fans of these two teams are going to be ready for this game for sure.
And then I've got Advance versus Bernie.
And I think Bernie, again, they're in Stoddard County Conference play. You want to get this win for to better your seeding. I think that it's going to come down between them and Dexter in that 3 and 4 seed. So you want to get these wins when you can, and they're playing at home. They play so well at home. It's going to be a tough ask for Advance, but Advance, another team that's very scrappy. They play hard, and they're going to get after you. So if you're Bernie, you got to show up to play.
And then Dexter versus Cape Central.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this one a little bit earlier. I think Dexter's. I mean, they're better than Cape Central, and you can't play around with them. I think you just got to go out and play your game and play like you did against Twin Rivers, and just put them away early.
I think if Cape Central, you kind of want to avenge what this season has become. If you're really trying to turn this program around, I think this is a good start for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Dexter beat you earlier in the season in SEMO Conference, and coming back and saying, okay, well, that's not who we are. I think that'd be a good statement win.
Yeah, and it would. And a lot of these teams don't like getting beat by Dexter in the SEMO Conference.
Nobody does.
The SEMO Conference, they kind of have gotten used to beating Dexter for the most part. And so when Dexter wins some of these SEMO Conference games, these teams are like, hey, wait, that's not supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And so Cape Central is going to get after them. I just don't think Cape Central has the horses to especially offensively, to beat a Dexter team that if Dexter's playing well at all, I just don't think that Cape Central can hang with them.
I can see it, but this is why we play the games.
That's right.
And then last on my list, I've got East Carter versus Van Buren.
And this ought to be a fun game too. These are two teams that, again, they play hard. They're scrappy. I like the size of East Carter. East Carter opened my eyes a little bit in the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament, but obviously Van Buren did as well. So this ought to be a fun game.
Two teams that have played Dexter to within 5 points?
Yeah. I think they match up well, and this ought to be a fun game. It's at Van Buren, so obviously you got to kind of give them the edge here, but at the same time, this East Carter team, they're not going to back down from anybody. They play hard, and they've got some good players, and they've got some size inside, and Van Buren, on the other hand, they've got some guards that kind of get after you, and it's these are two teams. This is just going to be a fun game, and that's kind of the game I'm looking to on Friday is probably the game to watch.
All right. Any games I'm missing?
I don't think so. Just you were kind of getting into it now. We're getting into just some regular season games, and we're going to find out a little bit more about these teams as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, David. Any final thoughts?
No, it was a fun Christmas tournament, and I thought A Corp did a tremendous job doing both tournaments, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. It was I enjoyed watching it and taking part, and I think it was a lot of fun. And you hate that it flies by so quick, but I'm sure you guys are enjoying the little bit of rest that you get from after you finish it up.
Yeah, I'd say the few days off were kind of warranted in a way.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. This has been the SEMO Sports Zone. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.